Well, hello and welcome. Whoa, the music just died. I hope everything's okay. Can you hear me? Can you hear me now? I'm Tom Sinclair. This is Streaming Idiots. This is the place where you can laugh and have fun and talk about sync issues. Yes, we were talking about sync issues in the chat room just a minute ago. You know, normally when you're talking about live streaming, you're thinking about, okay, a sync, that's an audio, kind of an audio and a video sync issue. Well, Tommy suggested Drano to fix your sync issues. Okay, Tommy, we got you. Oh my goodness, that's too funny, too funny. Thank y'all for your wishes last week when I was under the weather and didn't stream. I appreciate that very much. It did encourage me, and I feel terrific today. So here we go. But at my age, you know, anything can happen. Really looking forward to today's show. Did some show prep this morning and got set up. We're going to talk about the new Marshall Electronics line that we've added to our line here at Eastern Shore Broadcasting. Remember this show, this is full disclosure now, okay? You're always going to get the truth from me, at least the way I see it. The full disclosure is that this show is a giant infomercial. It's an infomercial for Eastern Shore Broadcasting, my company, the company that sponsors the show. And so we're hoping it's a lot of info and just a little bit of commercial. So let me get the commercial part out of the way. EasternShoreBroadcasting.com is where you can find this show, of course, but it's also where you can purchase PTZ optics cameras, the cool PTZ cams, the new Marshall cams that we've added to the line, the Magwell capture cards, and the USB 3 dongles. Gerald has a great review on Facebook of one that he got this morning, and he was kind of disappointed because it didn't take any. All he did is he plugged it in and it worked. It was like, where's all the fuss? You know, all the troubleshooting skills that I've developed over the years. I didn't get to use them. Oh my goodness. We also represent PI Engineering, the folks that make X keys. So a big shout out to Dan and the PI Engineering folks. Love X keys. I haven't done a review on an X key in a while. I need to do that because I've upgraded from the 24 to the 80 since the last time I did a review. So we have to do that. And then of course, last but not least is vMix, the wonderful software that I've just fallen in love with. I just wrap my arms around it every day and just, no, I'm teasing. That's a little weird, Tom. Anyway, so if you need any of those products, you can get them into my store. If you need multiples of those and you want to kind of work out a deal, shoot me an email, tom@easternshorebroadcasting.com, and I will respond immediately. And sometimes we're able to put together special buys. We did a PTZ optics special buy a while back, and we're able to pile up just a bunch of PTZ cameras and get everybody a good deal as a result. And so periodically we'll try to do that. In fact, we may try to do that with the Marshall camera since we're bringing that out as a new line. We'll see. You know, a lot of times the manufacturers won't let us advertise a price that's lower than a certain point, what they call their MAP. Minimum advertised pricing, I think is what that refers to. So we can't always share those information in a public format like this, but we can do it certainly by email and other kinds of things. Oh, Chris Watch, you tear me up. If you're watching us on YouTube directly, Facebook, Twitter, Periscope, come on over to EasternShoreBroadcasting.com because you can get the chat room right here. And these guys are trying their best to tickle me. And they're doing a pretty good job. Richard says, but wait, there's more. If you act now, you can get to... No, I'm teasing it. I really don't want the commercial part to be like that, but I do have to tell you what we do because it's how we stay in business. While we're in that transition between commercial and info right now, I want to give a big shout out to Lisa in Massachusetts. We did some consulting with her yesterday on a remote training project that she's doing using PTZ cameras and all sorts of other cool, neat things. Shout out to Aram and Marlene, and is it Marlene? Marlena? I've got it written down, but I can't read my own writing. Anyway, they're out in California, and they commissioned us to build them a custom PC for a talk show they're starting. I'm really excited about that. It's on the workbench. When we build them once on the workbench and get everything tested and make sure it's working. Then we take it apart And we put it in the case. Yes. And then we build it again and test it again. And that way it gets built and tested twice, so we make sure it's as bulletproof as possible. Another shout out to Catherine in Switzerland, we consulted with last week. She's doing a talk show and needs some help kind of getting her gear right. She's making the transition from Wirecast to vMix. And so she wanted to make sure she had all her bases covered. That was a pretty wise move. Shout out to Dewey in Texas, just got some PTZ cams from us. To Tom in Texas, who just got some Magewell stuff. To Jim in South Carolina, just got a PTZ camera and then got another one. He liked it so much. And to Mario in North Carolina, who actually we're working with Mario on developing a school studio in a box that they want to market, and it would have vMix at its heart. So big shout out to all you guys, and thank you for talking with me. It's always a treat for me. I mean, heck, I love to talk, can't you tell? Let's see, news kind of stuff. vMix Call will now work with your iPhone, iPad, if you have the new iOS version. I think it's 11. And I think that's limited at this point to Safari. So if you've got Safari, you can use vMix Call. Give that a try. And a hat tip to Kenny for getting that, for showing us, weeks ago how he was on the beta program, I guess, for the iOS, for the OS, and was able to get it working on his iPad a while back. So hat tip to Kenny on that one. So let's see. Where are we? Oh, yeah. Let's look at the cameras. Oh, by the way, coming up next week, before we get to the cams, coming up next week, we've got Chris Granner with Rivet. Rivet is I won't say a new player, but they're new to me, a new player in the pay-per-view genre. And he's got some interesting things about that. I don't want to steal any of his thunder, but if you're interested in pay-per-view, you definitely want to tune in next week, because we're going to be talking about pay-per-view exclusively next week. And that is October 11th on Streaming Idiots Pay-Per-View and Rivet, RIIVIT. If you can't wait until then, RIIVIT.com, rivet.com. So, let's see. Oh, last order of business. Whew, golly, there's so much business. You need, if you're not already, you need to join our Facebook group, Streaming Idiots. Yeah, right down there, down at the very bottom below the Streaming Idiots banner. Because there is a 24/7 conversation going on about live streaming, and almost anything you can think of about live streaming, from gear to software to CDNs to venues to electricity. I mean, just obscure stuff and common stuff. Stupid questions? No. If you don't know the answer, it's not a stupid question. Ask it. It's a gentle group. They don't make fun of each other. They make fun of me, but that doesn't count. And they have a lot of respect, and they love to help folks that are just starting out, and they love to help folks that have been doing things for a long time and have a kind of a weird, wacky workflow and are trying to get some problems figured out. Anyway, they're great guys and gals there, and give it a look. Streaming Idiots. It's facebook.com/groups/Streaming Idiots. Or just get into Facebook and do a search for Streaming Idiots. You'll find us. It's a great group, and I highly recommend it. I will say that we don't accept everybody that asks to be a member. So if you're interested in stealing our identities and all that kind of stuff, we're going to check you out. Yeah. And we probably won't let you in. Anyway, okay. Enough fiddle-faddle. Enough riddle-rattle. Let's talk about Marshall cameras. Okay, today's setup is using a Marshall camera. You say, Tom, you look good. You look bad. you look just as bad as you always do. But we're using a Marshall. It's called a miniature camera, and this one is the Marshall CV502. That's the one that I'm on right now. And here is another Marshall CV502. They're huge. They're just mammoth cameras. It's gonna take an extra sturdy tripod to mount these guys on. Let me give you a better look at it. I've got a a little camera demo set up here. Yeah. So let's go to the camera demo. There we go. This is the 502 that I'm using today. And it has, let me swing this one out of the way for just a minute before my big paws get onto it. And you can see it's got what looks like two SDI connectors on the back. Really, the top one is SDI. Oops, sorry, the bottom one is SDI, and the top one is composite. Excuse me, composite. The little checkerboard over here is the power app. And then this little toggle switch, little joy switch right here, allows us to control the camera settings. So we can set white balance and color and all sorts of other cool things with this little guy here. It puts a little menu on the screen. I'd show you, but I'd have to go across the room to turn it on. Really kind of neat. Now, lens-wise, there's a nice little lens cap there. You know, yes, you're right. The first time I used it, I was like, why is there no picture? Yes, but let's take the lens cap off. And this is a fixed focus lens. It's got a little set screw at the top right there. You see the set screw. And the lens itself just screws off. Actually, I probably have to loosen up the set screw to get this guy out. This guy is a little bit of a fisheye. It's not what I'm using today. I think I'm using a 12 millimeter. Thanks to Dennis for the heads up on which millimeter to try. And we'll be putting a different selection of lenses in stock, if not this week, certainly next week. And the idea is that you find the lens that is perfect for your application. You set it and forget it. And that's what I've done with this shot today. Well, let's go back to this shot for just a second so you can see. This is a set it and forget it shot. I leave the camera on 24/7. Why do you do that, Tom? Well, I want to test and see. You know, if the camera fails after 2 months of being left on 24/7, then we need to know that so that we don't put it either so that Marshall can fix it if there's something wrong with it, or so that we don't do things that we shouldn't do in that situation. The connections to the camera. Yeah, let's go back to the camera and let's look at that. Let me set this one just to the side for just a second, and I want to bring it in and show you the other one because that's the one that I've got all the doohickeys to. This is the 505. This is the 502. This is the 505 CV, and you can see they're pretty much the same, except this guy is huge. Again, for perspective, let me tell you how big he is. Yes, he's huge. He's mammoth, but he is bigger than the 502. And the reason is because this particular camera will go both HD-SDI and HDMI. And you say, uh-oh, Tom, where's the little toggle, the little joystick? Well, they've put this proprietary adapter here so that they can run power, joystick control, and RS485 control to the camera through, drum roll please. Actually, I do have a drum roll app, but I'm using both hands so I can't get it. So we're going to connect there, and then we've got this great, there's the joystick controller, and then the rest of the connector comes in, oops, right there. And so we've got red, which is power, with a warning saying that it's power. Yes, that is a mic. And this is the RS485. So when I connect, let's see, just spin it around until we get it to find its home position there. Well, maybe I need to pull the barrel back a little bit. Make sure I'm using the right one. It won't fit on the HD-SDI. There we go. And it locks in. And now I've got the ability to plug in all of those guys. I've also got a power supply, and by the way, it's a multi-continent power supply. So there's a clip here that clips in the USA and then the power supply is actually a locking power supply. So they go together like that, and then we spin the nut down on it so we can't get them apart. So now we've got the ability to have power to it. It's not POE. In fact, it's not E at all. There is no E in this particular camera. This one does HD-SDI. This one does SDI only. And this is the original model. I think they just felt pressure to come out with a HD-SDI model. Both of them are $499 retail. So pretty cool. Let's see, what else does it come with? It comes with a nice little information sheet. This is the 505, and in that information sheet it tells you about the controls. There we go, and all the specifications. Now this is an electronics company. I mean, these guys are into specs. And so here are all the different kinds of things that it will do, all the settings on it. Plus, it has an operational manual that the operations manual will tell you about all the settings on the ODS, the on-screen display, excuse me, OSD. And so it gives little pictures of the screens so that you can see what they look like and an explanation of how they work, so that you can set up your camera the way you want to set it up every time. Yes, there we go. Does it record its settings? I don't think it does. I haven't found that yet, where it will record the settings. I think you have to set it each time you disconnect it from power. So if you don't, it doesn't have an on-off switch. No, it does not have an on-off switch. It just connects to power, and then it does not connect to power. Does the 502 have audio input as well? No, it does not. 502, well, you know what? I may have spoken too soon. Let's take a look at the goodies that came with the 502 and make sure we're not missing something here. There's some lenses. Yep. No audio with the 502. So the 502 is an SDI video only. All right. Joystick. The joystick for the 502 is right here on the back of it. The joystick on the 505 is on the wire that controls it. And so basically it's a up, down, left, right, and then a push in to set. Joystick for functions like, let's see, Chris, we've got a whole list of functions right here. For white balance control, for exposure control, for backlight, for day-night, to turn the image stabilizer off and on, to turn the microphone off on the 505, to turn on gen lock, image control, display control, and all of the things that are inside those menus. For example, the mic control allows you to set the audio level. The gen lock, I'm not a gen lock guy, but apparently there's some gen lock controls on it too. You can flip the image, you can reverse the image, you can digitally zoom. All of this would be basically in a fixed camera setting. This is not a camera that you're going to actively zoom with. It's not a camera that you're going to operate at all, other than to cut to the shot. This shot right here, it's a static shot. And I think they use the Marshall cameras for in American football, in the NFL, and maybe in college too, I'm not sure. But I think it's Marshall cameras that are in the pylons at the end zone. So if you see that camera image going across the goal line, that's a Marshall camera behind the scenes on that one. In the National Basketball Association, the NBA, and in NCAA college basketball, they use the Marshall camera over the back of the goal to look down on the basket. So, very fixed, very particular use, fixed situations. But I think they're great for talk show environment. I mean, I've tried all sorts of cams over the years in my talk show. I started out with, I don't know how many different Logitech or Microsoft webcams, and then graduated to the, the Canon Vixia line because I was using those for sports, and then graduated to the PTZ optics because I had one in house and it was a really good lens, and now I've gone from from small to medium to large back to super small again, and I'm delighted with the Marshall cam, and I think I'll continue to stick with it. I will probably experiment. I'll probably experiment and swap out this 502 for the 505 in an upcoming show, just to be able to have a gauge for how the HDMI is different or not different from the SDI in the 502 versus the in the 505 versus the 502, and then compare the HDMI and the SDI in the 505, since it has both of them. I don't think they can run concurrently, but I'll find that out. It would be nice if they could, because then you can just have a monitor shot and then also have a feed, and you won't have to use the output from a monitor. So those are pretty cool. Pretty cool. Let's see. Mike says the 502 looks like it has 1080p 60 using the 3G SDI connector. Thank you, Mike. That's great. How does it compare to the GoPro, please? Well, Chris, that's a good question. I am not a GoPro guy. I've never held one. I've never used one. But people that I've talked to say that the GoPro is pretty finicky when it comes to live streaming, whereas the Marshall just, you just hook it up and it works. You set some settings for color, or you get the right lens so that you got your focus correct. Guido says it's $29.97, $59.94 frames, so not for Europe. That is correct. Tommy says, can the 502 ensure world peace? No. And yes, Tommy is the same one that wanted to add Drano for sync. That's right. Ken says the GoPro has a much wider viewing angle. I have not tested that. I do know that the Marshall has interchangeable lenses, so there may be a lens that has a wider viewing angle. But Martin says that you can get them for Europe. There's a European version, so that would be one with a 25 or a 50 frame rate. So there we go. That's the beauty of a kind of a collaborative show like this, is that you guys know what you know, and well, hold on, let me rephrase that. I know what I know, and you guys know what you know, and it's nice that you can fill in the gaps. There we go. Mike's giving us the whole on the CV502, the frame rate of 1920 by 1080, P60, P50, P30, P25. 1920 by 1080i, 60 and 50, 1280, 720, 60, 50, 30, and 25. So there you go. And Martin says, yes, you can fit any lens you want to them. Any? Any, Martin? There we go. And Ken said it would be nice to see a comparison of the lenses for the Marshalls. Well, that's a great idea. Ken, that's right. And Michael says 500 each, and that is correct. Yes, 500 each for the HDMI version that is also SDI, and then 500 for the SDI version. Are there any mounts for the camera? The camera takes a standard tripod mount, so mount it on whatever you want. Right now, I have got this mounted on a swing arm that has a bracket attached to it with a monitor attached to it, a little confidence monitor, so I can see myself. Kenny says, last show, the focus changed as you move. Yeah, actually, I think what was happening, Kenny, last show, which was, of course, 2 weeks ago, is that I had the white balance set on auto, And whenever I moved my hands, the color changed. And it did appear to me when I did that also that the image got sharper, but I think it was just a coloration kind of thing and not a focus, because unless I'm actually physically moving the camera closer or further away or adjusting the focus on the lens, I don't think there's a way to change focus. I mean, I think there's a way to zoom in the 505, but I don't think there's a way to change focus. Martin says the M12 lens is standard, but there are converters to other lens types. And what he meant was the any M12. Thank you, Mark, of course. What would people use them for, specific applications? Well, talk shows, obviously. Basketball goals, pylon cams. But think of other situations where you would want a fixed camera that would not be large and intrusive and would be able to give you, if you can put a camera there, again, a fixed camera. So I can think of a lot of church applications where you want to do a fixed camera. For example, I've had several folks that wanted to do a camera over the baptistry so that they could have a down shot on people that were getting baptized. I think the uses are going to be not standard camcorder, uses. Since we don't have zoom and it doesn't take an operator, it's going to be, Daniel's saying pulpit and lectern shots. Tommy says it would not be used for women's beach volleyball. But I think there are going to be specific circumstances where you're going to want a particular static shot. I can think of any event that, like a city council meeting, and you've got an inexpensive camera like this. A good quality, inexpensive camera like this that's giving you your room shot, or the shot of the stage or the podium or whatever it is that is not a movable shot, and the camera is mounted in that position, and it doesn't unmount. It just stays there. For those kind of situations, I can imagine. I can't imagine it in a sporting environment unless it were the kind of camera that you were to put in the press box with the commentators. This would be a good quality camera that would set up, that would mean you didn't have to use a camcorder or another kind of camera in that spot. Guido's saying that B&H calls them POV cams. Yep. Mike says the basketball hoop. That's right. All right. Giles says the focus may look as if it's changing if YouTube is auto-switching from one quality to another. Well, that's certainly true. Yep. But we'll be diving some more into these cameras in the future. Again, I think, we're not taking on lines left and right. We're trying to be real particular about the lines that we put into our store, things that we can know an awful lot about, so that when people want to buy one, we can counsel them and say, yes, this is going to work in that purpose, or we don't think it's going to work. And that's the reputation we're trying to develop as being somebody that has accurate information, even if it means turning away a sale, to say, no, this is not going to work in your situation. That's hugely important to me, to be able to provide accurate information that people can rely on and make their decisions on. The last thing I want is for somebody to call back and say, Tom, you told me X, but it's Y, and that's not the way I operate. Somebody was telling me the other day, Tom, your business is never going to be able to scale because it's just you. What if all of a sudden you have 4,000 customers? Well, number one, that's not going to happen. But number two, I don't want my business to scale. I want to be able to have a one-to-one relationship with all the clients. So when they call, I know who they are and they know who I am. Tom, how are you going to deal with, if you have 100 calls tomorrow? Well, we'll deal with them one call at a time. So there we go. Merle has put a sample clip from a YouTube video by Marshall in the chat room. So if you're not in the chat, come on over to easternshorebroadcasting.com and you can get in on the chat right now. Let's see, other things going on. Mike asks, are the Marshalls in the Eastern Shore Broadcasting store? No, they're not there yet. We'll have them there by the end of the week. So that's the story on that. And I'm looking at the production clock, and the production clock says we're 4 minutes over. Great clock. Actually, I think it went to yellow first, and now it's red. Maybe it should start flashing. Maybe it did, and I just didn't notice it. I'm going to pick up the webcam here for just a second, and I want to show you the look that we've got today. And let me turn a few things off in it first. And we're going to just turn it back to autofocus. And let me just grab it up for a second. And I want to give you a look, if I can do it, of what my setup is today, because I think it's really pretty cool, and I'm really pretty pleased. So let's switch over here. Here we go. So starting from the left, over here on the left next to my Lemonade, you can see the streaming and recording PC. And so that's got the output in the top right hand corner, and you can see the clock is red, and I can't really zoom too much on that. But that's my preset for streaming and recording. To the right of that is the main production in vMix. And you can see my show notes there. You can see my X keys guy and my vMix guy and my Giles guy there on top of the Behringer UMC 404 HD, only using one port in that, at least today. The other part of my setup is here on the right. You can see I'm monitoring the chat room, I'm monitoring the audio in vMix, and I'm monitoring the folks that are in the YouTube. And then what's new, you can see the Marshall. Well, you can't see the Marshall because it's black, but you can see a small confidence monitor that I've installed there. And that really, I'm looking forward to using that with guests, because it's going to help me to keep better eye contact with the guest. There we go. And then, of course, I've got my X Keys 80 here, a couple of PTZs just in case, and then a myriad of other doodads, including some dum-dums, because you got to have dum-dums when you're doing a show like this. So, but that's what I wanted to show you, was the confidence monitor there. There we go. All right. That was fun. And I think the PTZ Optics folks have got us scheduled to do a studio tour on their world tour of studios. So that should be coming up in a month or so. We'll make sure you get plenty of information about that. So let's see. What do we got up there? What is the advantage? Kent says, what is the advantage to the Marshall camera over a Webcam 920? That's a good question, Kent, because I was using the Logitech C920 to kind of turn everything around. I think number one is going to be that and this may not be an advantage, it may be a disadvantage to you, but the advantage, I think, to the Marshall is that it's a much better picture. It's coming in through a capture card. It's not coming in through USB. In my experience, USB webcam adds about 10% to the CPU usage. The Marshall coming in on a capture card is not going to do that. I think the clarity of the image is superior. That's probably it. You know, so other folks may have some other ideas. But you know, the Marshall camera is also 5 times the cost, maybe 7 times the cost, depending on what you can buy a Logitech C920 for. You can get a Logitech C920 for what, $60 or $70 versus $500 for a Marshall. But I think it's really a quality issue at that point. And again, I started with the C920 years ago and gradually moved away from it because of CPU usage and because I wanted clearer, sharper image. The lens in the C920, it's great for a lot of things, but it's not as good as a more professional level. Yep. There we go. Anderson says there will never be any spills on his set. I'll drink to that. Okay. We're going to move into the after show, the post show here, and we'll talk some more about the Marshall Cam there. If you're watching us live, stick around for that. If you're watching us after the fact, this might be the version that has the post show with it. If not, look for that on YouTube because it'll be there. But please join our Facebook group, Streaming Idiots, and also go to YouTube and subscribe to us there. And we'd love to have you come browse through our store, easternshorebroadcasting.com. We're getting it revamped soon, so you can take a look now and then take a look later and see how much better it looks. I'm Tom Sinclair. This has been Streaming Idiots. Don't forget to join us next week when we have Chris Granner. I'm looking over on my whiteboard over here. Chris Granner from Rivet, RIIVIT, Rivet.com, to talk about pay-per-view. So if you're looking for pay-per-view, make sure you tune in next week. Otherwise, stick around. We'll be right back with the post show.